So let's get it on. Well, let's talk about sex, baby. I love that title. It's just so interesting because a friend of mine said, "Well, why are you talking about sex? You're at church." You know, and that's the number one thought that comes up. Like, why would we talk about sex? Well, the other answer is, why wouldn't we? You- It's, it's like it's got to be somewhere in the Bible. I mean, for Christians or any religion, they all have something about sex, and I think it's important that we have that discussion. Like, why keep it hidden? Um, and let's talk about what the word is. Most people have one thing that comes to mind when you say the word sex, and like procreation for the fun of it. You know, um, I think that's usually what comes to people's mind, or fake it till you make it, or something. Um, However, uh, when we think about that word and how many different ways it can be used in our society, in our lives, it's important that we have those discussions. Um, I mean, if you want to get biblical about it, I mean, Adam and Eve had to do something to get Cain and Abel. I mean, they just didn't pop out of nowhere, you know, but that's not quite covered in depth in the Bible, or how the rest of humanity came into, you know, the creation process. So anyway, anybody want to comment before we dive into some quotes and further discussion?
There are a lot of begats in the Bible, hundreds of begats. They may not talk about the process, but we do know what begetting means, I
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
And it was just the male stream down through the generations, but still, yes, there's lots of begats. And also, Jesus' very first miracle was at a wedding. So he was blessing the marriage um, ritual by his presence. And I think the Christian church has taken that forward as a reminder that what we're talking about is holy.
Yeah. That's it. And that's okay. And different religions have different stipulations on what is holy or how to express the holiness. Um, and that's the thing about religions. Um, and I remember when I first realized I didn't quite know what the word religion, I just thought it was, well, it's just a formal way of recognizing God, which in a way, or God of whoever's understanding. But I had a sponsor in my life who said, look it up. And one of the definitions was binding oneself to one's source. And I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting about religion. And what ways do I bind myself to my source? And then coming into this teaching, I realized that I'm always bound to my source. It's just, am I aware of it? At what points am I not aware that, oh, wait a minute, I'm always one with source, and so I began to adopt as love as my religion, which made it much less dogmatic for me. Uh, However, a lot of religions, sex falls into the dogma of that religion, and and for the reasons why those religions are in place or maybe stay in place is to control their people. It's like, well, this is how we believe we should all be in, and so sex definitely takes a back seat in the conversations as far as um, procreation. Yeah, okay, yeah, that has to happen. Okay, and that's pretty much where the conversation begins and ends. However, there's what we know is that there's much more to it, and it seems to always um, be what's the word? Anything other than procreation is looked at as bad when it comes to sex. Well, unless it's the cover of People magazine that says sexiest man alive, or sexiest woman alive, and then it's okay. But then we don't talk about what does that actually mean, you know? the sexiest person. And any comments on that?
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Mm.
Well, we could talk about how we first learned about sex.
Mhm.
And maybe that doesn't belong here, but I would like to share a little bit about that. My mother was very against my knowing anything about sex.
Mm.
As a teenager, I found a book of hers about sex that she had bought that her mother didn't want her to have, but I found it among my mother's books. And I was very enlightened by reading it because it was new to me. I was probably 13 years old.
Mm.
And my mother just said I shouldn't be reading it. And she hid it away from me again and said, your husband's going to teach you everything you need to know, which is what her mother told her. And and so how wonderful it is that the education of sex is more open today. I think that particular perspective,
Mhm.
I like to think we have outgrown, because I don't believe ignorance is bliss, nor
Mm.
does it prevent things from happening that you don't want to happen with your young girls just because they don't know about it. It is an interesting thing to think about. Well, where did I first know about sex, and how did that change me? And what are the
Mm.
gifts that come as a result over my lifetime from being open to learn about myself as a sexual being, and about in my relationships, and for me it's always bringing it down to love.
Mhm.
I cannot separate
Mm.
love and sex. To me they go together. um, and In an article I was reading recently, they said, we could go back to the Course in Miracles. She was quoting Neil Donald Walsh, who said the only two emotions are love and fear,
Mhm.
and that those could apply to this area as well. That if we're coming from love, then our yeses are really yeses. uh, if we're coming from fear, maybe it should be a no and not a yes. Um, and so, as we bring the spiritual aspect into it, I love the thought that intimacy
That
also brings us closer to spirit.
yes. Yeah.
And that as we have an opportunity to be intimate with ourselves and with another human being, um, we are also being primed to be intimate with our source, because
Mhm.
we get the feeling sense of that. And
Mhm.
so much of our connection with the divine is a feeling and not an intellectual knowing, isn't it?
Right.
Thank you for bringing that up as well. And I know the play on the words of intimacy is into me, I see. And I love how that breaks down. And many of us don't want to look within to see what's inside. And a lot of clouded judgment on ourselves, wherever it came from,
Mm.
parents or whatever part of society we've adopted as true. And so I mean, I remember very early on when I started to look within because I didn't like what was going on in my life. And I still, but however, I was very critical and harsh and judgmental about myself, thinking I'm a bad person, having these thoughts, these feelings, these beliefs, and I'm wrong. And so I didn't want to look inside, because I didn't know to look for anything so-called good.
Right.
Like, oh, you're a friendly person, you're happy, you're joyful, you like being with, none of that was counted, you know. And so I wasn't being intimate, honestly, with myself. I was just being harsh and judgmental with myself, and then I learned otherwise, and that was life-saving. I'll say that, and then I learned there's a difference between intimacy and sexual relations, just because the word intimacy does mean closeness and sharing the feeling, and it's heightened. It's this heightened awareness of body and the co-mingling of all that energy, and it sometimes, very often, could lead to sexual activity. However, it doesn't have to. There's no have to, you know. Yeah, it does help a lot if you want to have either. They work well together. Uh, I also want to put up a quote and invite you to both to consider commenting. It says, "Your soul is your connection to the divine. Sacred sex is an activity of joining souls in holy celestial creation, expressing your application for the gift of life, of sharing your body's vitality with another." That's by Brunel Landrum, Chorus of Voices.
Mhm.
Anybody want to tackle that?
Well, I love the term sacred sex.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
know, I actually love to consider that being an instrument of the divine, I can invite spirit to experience life through me. That
Mhm.
God can see through my eyes and hear through my ears. And why not experience joy and pleasure through my body? So for us to see ourselves as an instrument, I mean, there's that, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. But we can see ourselves, and especially as we invite spirit to live through us, we can actually invite every aspect of our being, whether we're eating something that tastes really good
Mhm.
or enjoying a sunset or a beautiful flower, for us to say, God, look at this through my eyes, see this through my experience. Sacred sex to me is inviting spirit to come together with spirit in another individual. And the union is a holy union.
Mhm.
And yes, sharing our body's vitality with another uh, does make us one. And we do get a new visceral sense of what unification really is.
That's correct. Yes, and it helps having the awareness of this, of that it's more than just a physical activity. Um, and so there's another quote that I want to bring up. Just give me a moment, and it speaks exactly to what you were mentioning. And it says, through a conscious acceptance of the fullness of the presence of God, there flows in and through us a joy, a love, and a wholeness that touches every part of our being. And that's
Mhm.
from the founder of Science of Mind and Spirit, Ernest Holmes, in the Science of Mind magazine. Hmm.
Hmm.
Any feelings? Anything come up for either of you?
No, for me, when it comes to the subject of sex, um, I agree so much with Dr. Peggy that it is really something more intimate that makes it joyful, that makes us joy.
Hmm.
Uh, when you really when you're intimate with someone, you're intimate with yourself. You're giving of yourself. You're opening yourself up to expanding that consciousness of acceptance. And it's nice to think of it as having the presence there of spirit, of divine.
Hmm.
Because for me, when I find myself in that relationship, it is all about the love that's there. And I agree, Dr. Peggy, it cannot be just the act itself. There's got to be an emotion behind it. And that's how women are. For women, it is more emotional. And I don't know to speak for men and say it's more physical for them, but there has to be that connection as well. So that's how I feel about it.
Thanks. Now, and I love how we're moving in a certain direction here. So I want to bring up another quote.
Could we stay with this quote just a minute
Oh yeah,
longer,
sure. Go ahead.
Rod?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love this concept of the presence of God flowing in and through us as joy, um, and love and wholeness. This sense of flow is certainly expressing the sex act in an intimate relationship. There is a flow. It there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end, and there's a climax, and all of that's a flow of love, of feeling, of awareness, and a heightening of our senses. Don't you think? It expands our sense of what joy is, perhaps. It expands our sense of what love is. There is a breakthrough possible in those very moments into our realizing ourselves as spiritual beings.
Mm.
Mhm.
That, and thank you for bringing that up, because I think that, I mean, it sounds like possibly in the purest sense of it all. And I don't know if it has to be 100% pure, but I mean, as we are expressing our feelings, as we are expressing and opening ourselves, being vulnerable with
Yeah,
one another, that
that's
allows for that breakthrough of trust and love and respect and honor, givingness, even forgivingness.
Mm.
It's like, I remember for the longest time, it was very difficult for me to enjoy sexual relations. I felt guilty. I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to respect another, or myself. And it took a while, and it took quite a bit of forgiveness for me to release all of these concepts that I had accumulated that didn't even, that weren't helpful for me, just being with me, just enjoying my life as me, regardless of any contact with anybody else. So I don't know if anybody out there has experienced that, feeling like this has to be behind closed doors. I can't let anybody know what I'm thinking, even in the midst of it. Like, oh my God, I feel so ashamed, and to say something like that with a partner, can be, I mean, not just enlightening, what a relief to be able to say that and be free from those thoughts, and to have trust, that the person won't laugh. And even if they do, you know, it could still be okay.
It's one of the joys of living long enough to have moved through that and come out the other side years later. Because I think quite often, teenage, 20s, 30s even, uh, we haven't matured to the point where the enjoyment and the pleasure is as available as it might be later. There might be strong urgings to reproduce in those early years. And my kids were both born when I was in my 20s. And that was appropriate and normal, I thought. But as far as pleasure goes, it took a while longer than that because I agree with you. I had a lot of baggage.
right.
Uh, my dad hated sex. He loved books that talked about people getting murdered, but it better not have any sex in it. uh, and um, and he would talk against that. And so there
Mm,
was my upbringing about that. Although here he is, a father of 5 children. uh, uh, but as far as it being a theme in a play or a movie, that was a no-no,
mm,
which sent a message that there's something wrong with it, right? Um, and so, yeah, I had some real growing to do, and I'd like to think I lived long enough to grow through those early phases of it being something to be ashamed of or wrong, even in the marriage partnership. So, yeah, we can carry burdens that aren't logical at all. And I look back on that and it doesn't make sense at all. Why didn't I come awake to the truth of all of it earlier and
mhm.
enjoy it more? But then we grow and we unfold as we're supposed to. And it's all okay because we're looking back on it years later.
The whole thing is a process of learning about ourselves, about who we are in that relationship, who we are when it comes to sex. Um, there was a lot of growing, a lot of learning. Like you said, when you're young, it's so different to as we become more wise, and what it really means to have that intimate and sexual partner who really understands who you are, but understanding yourself in that as well. So I think there's a lot of growth in yourself, in the individual person that you bring to the table something of value when you value yourself in that process.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And yeah, I also want to touch on something else that comes to mind. How um, two things. One is the statement, the saying, the quip, let's make love, you know, and how love becomes uh, synonymous with sex, you know. So somebody says, oh, I love you, you know, somebody who's just not so aware might think that means I want to have sex with you, you know. And or some people think that you don't have to have love to have sex with somebody, and they get um, what's the word? Uh, it provides a confusing moment for people, or lifetime for some people, to either think that just because I say I love you means let's have sex, or somehow love is a determining factor, which actually I believe it should be, or it could be, that in the true essence of love, um, you know, just like recognizing wholeness and oneness, and that love is really, you know, the love of the creator that it has for each and every one of us. That yeah, that it could be an integral part of sexual activity, of love making, um, and not that love doesn't exist and we'll make it when we have sex. That's not what it means. However, some people are under that impression that sex leads to love, not realizing that love is the foundation of it all. And so I just wanted to bring that up because
Mhm.
when you hear the word love, don't think it automatically means sex, or vice versa. So I'm just letting
Right.
people know that that's not the intention of using those words in that way.
Right. And there are
Yeah,
even those who have been hurt in love that don't even like that word anymore, and
absolutely.
need to grow into their acceptance of that word because of uh, past hurts
Mhm.
and unforgiveness and inability to trust.
Right,
Yes.
right. Everyone has a different experience that
Mhm.
grow up to what love really is, and how
Right.
you're shown love as a child, and as you're growing, what love really is. You know, and there's so many levels of it. You know, luckily, oh, I love that. There you go. Read that.
Want to read that one?
Yes, love is too beautiful to be hidden in the closet.
Mm.
Uh, love is too beautiful to be hidden in the closet. I love that. That is wonderful. We shy away from that, and it depends on the love that you have. You know, nowadays, look at, are you allowed to love someone of same sex? Or all the changes of the LGBTQ and the way that they love. It is just as powerful as any love. So it doesn't it isn't different. It doesn't differentiate. So that love, um, leading to whatever relationship you want, should never be hidden. Should never be put away in the closet out of fear. And so that quote, to me, that is how is I see it, is that you need to be open to love as you wish to love. The freedom, the freedom to love as you wish, and to express that love with who you really want to spend your life with and have a relationship with.
Thank you for that. And also, I find that um, even I mean, regardless of the sexual orientation, um, love is love. You know, it's just a spiritual principle. It's a law of the universe. You know, I like to think that God loves itself so much that it created each and every one of us to see just how beautiful it is. You know, God said, "Oh, I'm lovely. Let me see what other forms of love that I can create. That individually." And
Mhm.
then each and every one is love. All of us are, and have the capacity and the compensity, no, um, have the ability to
Oh,
express the love of the Creator that
mhm.
was unconditional. Um, it's I remember hearing, well, God don't make ugly. Well, yeah, well, that's true. Like you started off by saying, Lita, it's like in the eye of the beholder,
Yeah.
you know, and each of us gets to behold love through the lens of God, and express it that way as well.
Mhm.
And so when it comes to love and sex, I remember I took a course called Love and Intimacy, and most of the people in that class thought we were going to be talking about sex, and it wasn't. I mean, it came up, but it's about how sex gets to be a part of love and intimacy,
Mhm.
and not sex is not the focus of love and intimacy, but it's a part of the puzzle. It's a welcome part of the experience of love and intimacy, and not the allness of it or the fullness of it or all of it. It's a part of it.
Well,
And
isn't
yeah.
in the Bible, in Corinthians, it says faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these, the greatest is love.
Hmm.
And we all want that. We all want love. We all desire to have that love from everyone, to be accepted, to be loved. So I don't know what made me think of that when you were talking about God before, but that is the greatest and the most powerful energy of anything. And it's mentioned even in the science of mind, how many times, it talks about love and the union of that peace and joy and love are all one, but the greatest is love itself by itself.
And for us to let God love us through our beloveds.
Hmm.
Mm,
You know,
like
if
that.
our expectation is that our beloved is not going to love us enough, then
Mhm.
that's what we get.
Hmm.
Right.
And sometimes it just takes that decision on our part to say, I'm going to let God love me through my husband.
Hmm.
Right.
Yes.
And when I got really clear, this is in my personal life. When I got really clear that it was I that was holding the love away, perhaps because I didn't love myself enough, I was seeing a different aspect a lot of the time. And so I just started to say the affirmation, I let God love me through my husband, and I named him.
Mm.
And there was a transformation, which I've enjoyed ever since.
Oh, that is beautiful. Yeah. Was there more you wanted to share?
No, that was it. That was
Oh,
it. But it's ongoing. And
yeah.
so for me to just say it one more time so people really get it, I let God love me through and name the person.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. And folks, I hope you're writing that down or recording that or something. And it doesn't have to be the romantic, husband
No,
wife situation.
no,
It could be
doesn't.
any relationship. I mean, I remember when I went to 12-step program, and one of the first things that I encountered was a slogan that said, "Let us love you till you learn to love yourself." And I
Mm.
had to be open to what that meant, because in my mind it was like, is there a back room we're going to or something, or you know and really what it meant was learn how to take care of yourself, learn how to love yourself, learn how to do the right thing for yourself, and so that in turn you can express that with another. And it also meant don't do harm to yourself, don't harm anybody else. And so I think it's really important that God's love does not include in any way, shape, or form harm to another.
Right.
If it does, it's not God's love. Okay. So if it feels like, oh my God, love hurts, well, no, that's your ego, not wanting to let go and be open and vulnerable to, and so sometimes we kind of get it confused. And I know I have a friend that says, well, people use the word love flippantly. They just say it. And that's true. But then it's not love that they're talking about.
Right.
It's the experience maybe labeled under love, but it's not love. They're like, well, I'm going to love you and until it hurts. No, then it's not love. Okay. So now there's one more quote before we move into the next stage, and it's rather long and juicy. So let's get into it real quickly here. And either one of you can read it if you like, if you can.
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. What matters is getting to soul love more and more. I don't just need any labels at all. Whatever I am, I just am. As I age, my sexual drive has slowed. I still have occasional sexual thoughts and fantasies, but the less I identify with my body, the further my lust evolves into love. From my soul, I look at people I would have been sexually attracted to in the past, and I just love them. I don't think about their bodies. I see where they are in their journey or in their relationships. When I can just be with someone, it allows them to come into their soul too.
Hmm. And that's by Ram Dass. Sorry I didn't get uh, on there, but yeah, that's by Ram Dass, and it comes from his book, Being Ram Dass.
Mm.
Yeah, and so I love that. And when I look at that quote, the first thought I have is it doesn't matter what age we are. Not just that as I uh, as I age, doesn't mean that we become like senior citizens and or anything. That can happen at any age. We don't, we can live soul to soul, recognizing love in our hearts and our soul, and that will determine how we look at people, and we'll put lust in its place, so to speak. Um, and not that lust is a bad thing. I think lust with love could be a good thing. you know, just not to the point of excluding everything else. It's like I don't want to love lust, no, um, but desiring to be with another um, is not a bad thing. Um, and so I love he says, I don't think about their bodies. I see where they are in their journey or in their relationships. And we can be with each other and support each other in love in that way. And um, I mean, it's just because two people are sitting on a couch and feeling amorous doesn't mean they have to engage in sexual activity or have sexual thoughts. Just the joy of being with someone is soul to soul for me. Very meaningful. Anybody else?
Well, this idea of sexual drive, we haven't talked a whole lot about it.
Right.
Um, but, that word libido or
Hmm.
sexual drive can also be seen as desire for lots of things,
Hmm.
not just sex.
Right.
And it also can lead us to the spiritual meaning of libido, which is our movement toward our becoming our divine self
Hmm.
and expressing our spiritual nature ever more fully. And so for us to somehow put all of this together in the mix and see sexuality, sex drive, libido, whatever it might be, as this wonderful desire of our heart to fully express our authentic nature and then to awaken to who we truly are as spiritual beings. That somehow it's all tied together.
Hmm. Absolutely. And it takes practice. It takes contemplation. It takes experimentation to see things differently.
Takes me.
If necessary. Um, and I mean that by saying, well, let me explore just what does that actually mean in my life, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and being with someone. And we have to. It's a risk. It's a dare to break free. Like Lita said earlier, there's freedom in experiencing what love is. and experiencing the sensations in our bodies and not thinking that they're only sexual signposts. Like, okay, you feel that way, must be time for sex. No, it's not quite what it doesn't have to mean that. It might at some points, but I think it's important that we can adopt some of this. Not that the sexual drive has to slow down either. It's just another way to comprehend uh, our 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 spiritual nature in the human body,
Mm.
and that's something else that you know bears enlightenment. However, we don't have time for that right now. Um, but like as we say, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and so sex falls into that, and we don't have to damn and punish ourselves for having thoughts of intimacy and sexuality and sexual thoughts. So at this point, a lot that we've spoken about, we're going to affirm about.
Okay. So are we doing affirmations?
Yes, it's time for affirmations.
Mhm.
And um, invite Dr. Peggy to do the first one, and I invite each one to take a breath, and we'll do that twice.
Okay, so I invite you to take a deep breath and say with me, it is so that it is time to release any shame or guilt that I have been taught about my body and my sexuality. Just take another deep breath and say it again. It is so that it is time to release any shame or guilt that I have been taught about my body and my sexuality. Thank you.
So let's take another breath. It is so that I embrace my sexuality and find healthy and supportive outlets for it. Let's take another deep breath here. It is so that I embrace my sexuality and find healthy and supportive outlets for it.
So I invite you to take in another breath and repeat. I am a sexy spiritual being. Let's take a breath and say that again. I am a sexy spiritual being. And so it is, and now it is. Thank you so much. We're going to go into prayer, use a spiritual mind treatment, and we'll be inviting Dr. Peggy and Lita back in just a moment. And so I invite you all to join me in this high holy moment, as all of these moments are. Just knowing that there's only one power, one life, that life is God's life, is the life of the Creator that has created everything out of itself. And so therefore, we are ones of the one. And being ones of the one, I know that we are created as one, as the love, the unconditional love that the Creator is, that has made us unconditionally. Meaning there's no condition, no reason to be anything other than who and what we are, spiritual beings. And I know that as such, we are love, first and foremost. And that love is in, through, and as all aspects of life. And it transcends anything, any thoughts of anything less than love. And this includes sex. And talking about sex, I know that there is that energy in, through, and as all things. And you can call it libido, you can call it the sex drive, you can call it all kind of descriptions. And I know that it is love. And in the purest sense, in a whole sense, in a holy sense, that this love expresses through sexual activity, through the desire to want to express our highest and best experience of sexual activity, our sexuality, that which on the inside, showing on the outside, is a glow, there's a wonderful uh, presence of awareness and knowingness that yes, we are the sexiest ones alive and have always been. And the eye of the beholder is my eye, your eye, the eye of God that expresses to each and every one. And this energy is, in its true sense, it is good, it feels good, and we wear it well. And we are sexy beings, which doesn't mean it has to show up through sexual activity using our bodies, because the best sex shows up in the mind, in the thought, in the willingness and the desire to fully express one's love with oneself and another. And so I give thanks in knowing that there is no shame. It comes out of the closet that we are sexual beings. We are made from sex. We are made in the image and likeness of the divine, of the creative process. And it shows up on the individualized expression in, through, and as each and every one of us. And I give thanks for using our divine energies for our greater good and to share it with one another. And I allow this to be the truth for each and every one, to be free and vulnerable and trusting and strong in the awareness of truth that we are spiritual beings having spiritual experiences in the human body. And so I give thanks for this word. I release this word knowing that it shows up easily and effortlessly for each one to be their own poster of sexiest one alive. I allow it to be the good that it continues to unfold to be with a greater awareness, greater livingness of this truth, of love, right here, right now. And I affirm it, and I invite each one to affirm with me by saying, and so it is, and now it is. So peace and blessings, each and every one. Yes, so now we're going to move into our next stage. And what you experience is prayer. And we do spiritual mind treatment. We treat the mind, the soul, the spirit with the truth. And you can contact us each and every time you experience this. And I want to say that we are here for you. I know that the Agape Choir had a wonderful song, Ricky Byers, it Use Me. We're here for your use. So use us and we can support you. You can use email reverendgod at gmail.com. And whatever prayer request comes in, please know it will be prayed on for 7 days. And I have a request. You make a request, I make a request. The request is you let us know when that prayer has been answered. And if it hasn't been answered in that amount of time, let us know and we'll continue to pray because we know that prayer works and it works. And if you put in a prayer request, we know you're open for it. So therefore, we will do it. And that's why we're trained in that way and we love to do it. And it's our life purpose is to be here on the planet for one another. And we pray. And we do the spiritual mind treatment. If you need more in-depth time for that, we'll make arrangements for that as well. So again, use us. And you can also go to our website and put in a prayer request as well, onelovecenter.org. Okay. Also, when it comes to contacting us, first of all, we want to thank you for your giving this. We give thanks for sharing of your abundance. We before we get to the affirmation, we want to get to how you can support us, and that is through PayPal. You can go to our website and you can when you go to our website, look for the PayPal button, or you can use a Cash Me app, which is $ One Love CSL. Okay, and now we're going to go into the affirmation of abundance. And feel free to maybe put your hand over your heart and feel that vibration, that vibratory energy that is, and just think of how money comes to you, and that the fact that it does, like we can't give unless it is given to us. And it's like that heartbeat. There's a flow of energy. It's a circulation. You have a whole circulating through our whole body, and that's the same way in the universe. And so we give from the circulation that is never ending. And we have an affirmation of abundance. And it goes like this. And feel free to repeat it wherever you are. Money, as one of the many gifts of spirit, is good. And as I share my offerings, I know that I am actively creating a space to receive more gifts, more money, and more good. And I also know that, and as oops, I'm grateful for the ability to give and for the good work these gifts do in our center and in our world. And now it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the only announcement I have is stay tuned for our Beyond Limits class coming up in the fall. So that will be coming up soon. Check the website, and we'll have the dates and everything regarding the Beyond Limits class. So, having said that, I want to thank everybody, thank our guests, um, Lita and Dr. Peggy, for the invigorating, soulful conversation. And any last remarks before we move into prayer?
Just has been such a privilege to be with you and Lita today. Thank you for asking.
Thank
All
you
right,
so much for
so
having me again. I appreciate it.
absolutely, all the time, always. And I look forward to us doing this again. All right. So I'm inviting everybody to come back so we can do prayer together. Yeah, so come on back, folks. All right. So I'll start it and end it, and each one can take a part. And I'm just grateful for all of those who have been in attendance, who are watching now or watching later. Give thanks for your attention and for your participation and for your energy. I am knowing that, what a conversation that is started here. And I say started because this is a conversation, a topic that a lot of people don't want to talk about, and you're free to express it, and you can share this video. And so I am knowing that there is great good that has happened from this time together. And I pass my word.
So I just give loving thanks for all the people who were here with us today and all the things that we discussed that are beneficial to realizing our full potential. I'm so grateful for Dr. Reverend Dr. Peggy and for Reverend Rodney for having that conversation that sometimes becomes difficult. And so I pass it on.
Mm. And I know that as we go our separate ways today and throughout the week and the time ahead, that each one is a blessing in their lives, that the lives that they touch and the lives that they bless are forever receiving greater good because of people being with us today and taking the wisdom, the love with them wherever they go. They are, in fact, helping to heal the planet and bless the world. And I give thanks that this is so.
And in giving thanks, I am knowing that each and every one of us, each and every one of you are sexy beings. Woo! And we glow. We are glowing in the flow of love. And that is of the Creator, of God, of whatever name you choose to use, doesn't matter. It's all good. It's all God. And we go forth knowing that we are a little bit more aware and enlightened about the word sex, and that it's okay to say, it's okay to pull it out of the closet. Hmm. And we get to help one another with a greater realization and understanding of our natural way of being. For this and so much more, I give thanks. I let it go. Let it be the good that it unfolds to be. And please join me by affirming it by saying, and so it is, and now it is.
So it is, and now it is.